Hmm. Hi, hi there. Welcome to those of you who are able to join me tonight. Um, yeah, it's not quite 8 o'clock, um, so I'll just pause for a little bit to allow everyone to arrive before I start explaining what we're going to be doing tonight. Okay, so we're at 8 o'clock now. Yes, right. Well, I thought tonight we could do a full sitting meditation, not the really long one that you might be used to doing from the CD, but a bit of a longer practice than we've done so far on the live streams. So maybe about 30 minutes or maybe slightly less than 30 minutes. So if you haven't got time to sit for the whole of that period of time, you could maybe go at a certain point. As you know, the different stages of the sitting meditation are the breath, the body, sounds, thoughts, emotions, and then open what they call choiceless awareness. So you could always end the practice at any of those points after maybe after sounds, which will probably be about 20 minutes, or after thoughts, or why not stay for the whole thing and see how it goes. Okay, well, before we start the practice, I just wanted to say a few words about the new aspect of mindfulness that we're looking at this month, that we explored at the last drop-in last Thursday, which is acceptance. And I think this is really quite a major practice, actually. I mean, they all are really. And maybe next week I could just run through all of them, just so if you're not familiar with them, you've got the sense of the whole range of them. So yeah, acceptance is applicable at every level, really, in mindfulness practice, and also taking that out into your life. Recognizing acceptance and non-acceptance as well, that resistance to the way things are in any given moment. You know, it might be something as simple as our shoes aren't comfortable, or we're a bit too hot or a bit too cold, or we're hungry or we're too full. You know, there's that kind of jostling and juggling going on all the time, finding that perfect sweet spot of being comfortable and okay with how things are. And of course, it's okay to do things to address that, to take off a layer if we're feeling too hot, to put a layer on if we're feeling too cold. But perhaps if we're always sort of shimmying around, kind of a bit like a cat on a hot tin roof, always looking for that perfect state of comfort, maybe that makes us quite restless and dissatisfied. So it also applies obviously to the bigger things of life as well, and that's where it's a really challenging practice, because how can we accept the very stressful and difficult things that might happen to us in our life? You know, like if we have to contend with chronic pain or illness, or losing somebody precious to us. Of course, it's not as simple as saying just accept it. And it's not about sucking it up or resignation at all. It's just about recognizing where that edge is, really, between acceptance and non-acceptance, and maybe just turning towards it. So it's quite a courageous sort of movement, rather than resignation, which tends to be a bit of a giving up. In a way, it's a kind of an escape from the situation, isn't it? When we resign ourselves to things, as much as when we fight with them, really. So I won't say much more than that, because I could probably ramble on for ages about the subject. But I thought I'd read out a quote that's been ringing in my ears for ever since I heard it. Really, it seems to crop up every now and again, particularly when I'm facing a difficult time of any kind. And it was in a talk by Sylvia Boorstein, who is a Buddhist meditation teacher. A lovely, warm, friendly, engaging Dharma teacher. And her quote, and I'm not sure if it's her own or whether she got it from somewhere else. And what she likes to say herself when things are not going quite right in her life is, "May I meet this moment fully. May I meet it as a friend." So, may I meet this moment fully. May I meet it as a friend. So it's kind of bringing in that attitude of kindliness as well towards ourselves and towards the situation, kind of warm-heartedness. And maybe we'll return to that at the end of the practice with a poem that some of you will be familiar with, but I won't say any more about that right now. So let's get down to some practice. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to set yourselves up with whatever you're going to be sitting on. I'll do a little bit of a setup. I know that many of you will know what to do to set yourselves up in meditation, but I'll go through the instructions anyway, in case there's anybody out there who's not very familiar with mindfulness practice. Okay, so as I said, this will be about 25 to 30 minutes of practice, so slightly longer than we've done so far. Okay. So, if you wish, closing your eyes, you can keep them open and softly focused at a point in front of you, kind of resting your gaze there. And adopting an upright posture. At the Mindfulness Day retreat yesterday, we were exploring the attitude of sitting like a mountain, doing the mountain meditation which we did last week. So taking your seat with a sense of purpose and determination and readiness to engage with the practice, and yeah, just preparing to be with whatever arises in the practice. So taking your attention first of all to your feet, where they're meeting the floor, where they're in contact with the floor. So just sensing into that contact, either through the soles of your feet or the tops of your feet, depending on how you're sitting. Feeling the weight, the pressure of the feet in contact with the ground. And then taking your attention to whatever you're in contact with where you're sitting with your seat. So through the buttocks, the pressure and contact of your buttocks meeting the cushions or the chair that you're sitting on. And then seeing that lower part of your body, your feet, your legs, your hips, your buttocks, as your stable, grounded mountain base, if you like, if that helps to connect to that sense of rootedness. And out of that, your upper body can kind of rise up, your spine gently curving, your shoulders broad and relaxed, chest open, softening in the belly, in the chest area, in the heart area, and in the face. And perhaps tucking your chin in very slightly, just to help elongate the back of the neck, which often gets a bit scrunched up during the day. And you'll notice that when you do that, as the neck elongates, the crown of the head kind of gently stretches up towards the ceiling. So just feeling centered. Maybe you might want to shift a bit from side to side, sway a bit backwards and forwards, just finding that balanced point, not too far forward, not too far back, and not leaning over to one side more than the other. resting your hands on your thighs or folded in your lap, or just wherever feels comfortable. And so, having set up our posture, we can now perhaps just take in a sense of our overall physical presence in this moment. The whole body sitting here, from head to toe. Just taking our attention within. Often during the day at work or wherever we've been during the day, our attention can sometimes be quite outward focused, doing things, seeing other people, talking to other people. And so at this point in time during the meditation practice, we can just bring our attention inward, just to see where we are right now. And bringing in that spirit of acceptance of however we are right now. It's okay. It's just how things are in this moment. And accepting and acknowledging that, we can make room for the next moment and maybe a change in how we are. So now, settling your focus of attention on the breath. So taking your attention, perhaps to begin with, to tracking the whole flow of the breath, from where it moves in at the nostrils, and tracks down, moves down through the back of the throat, down into the upper chest, into the belly even, and then that sense of fullness, that sense of expansion and fullness as the in-breath reaches its furthest point, and then that slight pause before the out-breath begins, and that sense of relaxing, contracting as the breath moves back up from the belly to the chest, the throat, and out through the nose or maybe the mouth. So just continuing like this for a while, feeling and sensing the movement and the physical sensations of breathing. So we're not trying to make the breathing different from how it is. Again, we can practice acceptance of letting the breath breathe itself, letting the body breathe itself as it does throughout the rest of the day and night when we're not paying attention to it. Just this one breath in from beginning to end. Just this breath out from beginning to end. Resting your awareness on the movement of the breath. Each in-breath for its full duration, and each out-breath for its full duration. And now, shifting the focus of your attention, going in a bit closer to the point in the flow of the breath where your attention is naturally drawn, where it feels most vivid and most strong. So that might be In the belly, stretch of muscles on the in-breath and the relaxation on the out-breath. Might be where your attention is drawn, or it might be to the sensations of the movement of the breath in the nostrils, the cool air coming in, the slightly warmer air leaving, or anywhere in between, in the throat or the chest, in the ribs. So just finding that place where you would like to go in a bit closer, focusing more fully in that area. And being curious about the breath, seeing if we can develop interest in the breath, its texture. This breath might be slightly ragged, maybe left over from exerting ourselves, rushing around, getting everything done before we come to sit. Or it might be very settled and quiet and smooth, barely there in a way, very gentle. And then we might notice how each breath in that particular area is slightly different to the one before and the one after. This one now slightly longer. This breath now shorter, deeper, shallower. Tasting the breath, opening to the full sensory experience of the breath. Its sound, its physical sensations, its rhythm. And if the mind begins to dull out or grow restless, and you find yourself caught up in a whirl of thoughts before you know it, not feeling disappointed that this has happened, but allowing it to be a part of the practice itself. This whole process of the mind moving away, getting distracted, you seeing that, acknowledging it, noticing where the mind went to, and then gently and kindly letting go and coming back to the breath, without any sense of it having been a problem that the mind wandered. And even congratulating yourself that in that moment of noticing that your mind had wandered, you were already back in the practice of following the breath. So now let's allow the focus on the breath to fade a bit into the background of our awareness. And now opening out our awareness around the breath to the whole body, the whole breathing body. So we'll notice almost like the ripple effect of the in-breath through the whole body as it reaches its fullest point. And then the other ripple effect of the out-breath as the breath leaves the body. So sensations most strongly felt in the upper body, in the torso, in the belly, in the chest, in the back, the ribs, but also maybe tuning into sensations of movement and expansion in the shoulders, the arms, the pelvic area, even the legs, and of course the head and the neck as the air moves backwards and forwards through the whole body. in and out. So the whole body breathing. And then also noticing different kinds of sensations in the body as we breathe. Maybe sensations on the skin, clothing, the coolness or the warmth of the air, the movement of the air perhaps, the hair on the scalp and around the face. And those sensations of contact, the hands on the thighs or in the lap, maybe touching each other. Different parts of the body in contact with each other, the arms by your sides, eyelids, lips. And then contact and pressure of that contact with the floor, with your chair, with the cushions. The feeling of weightiness in some areas and lightness in others. Areas of tension. Other areas that are experiencing more ease and relaxation and lightness. So just holding this broader awareness of the body, the breathing body, as best we can. Watching, observing, feeling the changes moment by moment in the body. And allowing things to be just as they are, even where there's maybe some discomfort. Perhaps we can just accept that. That's how things are right now. And now moving in perhaps to particular areas of sensation, going in a little bit closer to patterns of sensation. So maybe there's an ache somewhere. Perhaps you could move in a little bit closer and explore that sensation of achiness. What exactly is it? Or a feeling of fullness in the belly from the meal that you've just had. Or hunger if you haven't yet managed to eat your evening meal. And other sensations. For example, an itch can be a very interesting kind of a sensation to explore. Noticing that pull to scratch the itch and seeing if we can just hold back and let the sensation be as it is. Or we might just choose a particular area of the body just to focus in on the different sensations in that area. For example, in the hands or the toes. And if there's a particularly intense sensation, one that we might be experiencing as unpleasant, might be a physical sensation, maybe some tension or even pain, or it might be an emotional discomfort. Just seeing how we're going to respond to this experience. Are we going to perhaps see if moving might help, adjusting our position, maybe straightening up the back a bit, or shifting our weight. And if we decide to do that, doing that with mindfulness. So not opting out of the practice. Another choice would be to actually turn towards the sensation, developing a curiosity about it, being willing to go a little closer, not pushing right in to the intensity, but just staying on the gentle side and exploring it for as long as feels okay, noticing its qualities. Maybe it's got a shape or a colour or a texture. Maybe it's moving around. Maybe it's fluctuating. Just seeing what's there. But if it's a very intense sensation and you feel that you might become overwhelmed by it, another choice might be to take your attention to a different part of your body that might be feeling something quite different, an area that's feeling more relaxation and ease, and just focusing your attention there. And at any point we can always just come back to the breath. To stabilize our focus of attention again, bring us back into the present moment if we get a bit rocked by our thoughts or our emotions or physical sensations. And now letting go of awareness of sensations in the body, and now taking your attention to sounds. So taking your attention up to your ears, noticing their receptivity, their sensitivity to sound, and not seeking sounds out, but just letting them arrive in your awareness. And if we can, playing with experiencing sound as sound, the direct experience of it. Noticing how very quickly our mind knows a sound or speculates about a sound and labels it. And seeing if we can just be with that direct quality of experience of the sound, its tone, its volume. Is it a sound that we feel that is pleasant or unpleasant or is neutral? Is that sound triggering thoughts, a whole story around the sound? And if we get lost in that story, stepping out of it when we recognise that's happened, and coming back to the breath, or coming back to just experiencing sound as sound. Sounds arising, changing, abrupt or drawn out, soft or loud, pleasant or unpleasant, and eventually fading back into the silence. So now letting go of sounds, letting experience and awareness of sounds fade into the background. And now focusing on thoughts themselves, just for a little while. Expanding your awareness around the whole thinking process. Noticing how thoughts arise, how they have a tendency to develop, proliferate, or fizzle out and disappear. Some thoughts quickly draw us in. Before we know it, we're lost and caught up in that thought. Other thoughts are easier just to watch. We feel less identified with them. All kinds and species of thoughts, background thoughts, thoughts that are very much front of stage. Thoughts that we very strongly identify with. We think of them as our voice, they are us. Other thoughts more like visitors. But whatever kind of thought it is, just seeing if we can step back and observe the thought. And observe how it moves through the mind. Maybe like a cloud across the blue sky of the mind. And you can always come back to the breath to help refocus if you do get very caught up in the thoughts and find that you're no longer aware of thought as thought, but are right there in the storyline of the thought. I'm not seeing that as a problem, as part of the practice. And now, letting go of thoughts. And let's expand our awareness out now to the whole of our experience as it arises, changes, moves on moment by moment as we sit here, stable and grounded, allowing it all to unfold moment by moment. So no particular focus, but almost just being there with the kaleidoscope of changes. Maybe now being more aware of a breath, now more aware of a physical sensation, now more aware of a thought or a feeling or a sound that suddenly bursts into your awareness. Just letting it all unfurl and change and move on, arising and fading. And just as we sit here for this last part of the practice, I'd just like to read a poem that expresses this spirit of acceptance that we were talking about at the beginning and have referred to during the practice too. So it's Rumi's poem, The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honourably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Okay, so just gently bringing yourself back from the experience of the practice, back into the space of the room where you're sitting, opening your eyes when you're ready, letting the light in, gradually reorientating yourself to a more outward focus again. And just maybe taking that thought, I mean, the great challenge that's there in Rumi's poem, it might feel almost outrageous, really. How can we possibly welcome in all these so very difficult and challenging aspects of life? And just making the point, really, that part of that acceptance is also accepting that we won't accept it. So allowing the non-acceptance and all the feelings that that's made up of to be in our experience as well, and knowing it's okay. So not judging ourselves if we don't find ourselves able to accept. It's more about being aware of that possibility, and just maybe in the less challenging moments in particular, those slightly annoying and uncomfortable points of our day, of our experience, maybe then we can just think, oh yes, what would it be like if I just relaxed a bit around this experience, just let go a bit of the resistance to it. So it's certainly something that I'm trying my best with when I remember. And you know, it's not something you get perfectly right and become an expert on, but it's an interesting process. So that's all from me for today, and I'll have a quick look over on the live chat, see if anybody has written anything. So welcome to, well, so welcome, it's nearly time to go now, but thank you for joining me, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the week, and I'll see you again next Monday. Okay. Good night.